Hi everyone, my name is Parshati Patel and I'm really excited to share with you my tips and tricks and how I actually take the Milky Way photos. Now in this first episode we're going to talk about equipment, so let's look at all the different kinds of equipments that I actually use and have acquired over years, and what you could do with simple basic camera that you might have in your house. So let's get started. So the first one is a camera. So I have a DSLR camera. This is a very low-end DSLR. What this really allows you to do compared to just a small basic camera with a few different settings is that this one actually allows you to manually change things in your camera. So an example is how long can you leave the camera shutter open, or how big that shutter is, or things like how sensitive the sensor is for your camera. And the neat thing is that I bought this in 2012. However, nowadays you can find these kinds of manual features that you can actually change in a simple cell phone as well. So if you have one of those, feel free to use your cell phone rather than a DSLR, but you definitely need something that allows you to make those changes manually rather than an automatic camera where you just, click a picture and it's on an auto mode. That will not work here. In addition to the camera, you obviously need some kind of lens to attach with it. So this is a kit lens that generally comes with, a basic DSLR that you would buy. This is a good starter lens. In this lens, you have, from 18 to 55 millimeter, as you can see in here. And this works perfectly fine if you're just starting and learning how to do Milky Way photography. A lot of the Milky Way photography is actually practicing. So once you learn, you've got to practice, and this is a great practice lens. I used this for at least a few years before I moved on to a more wide angle lens. And what it means is that this is my wide angle lens that I use. And this one is 14 millimeter. So it opens pretty wide, so you can see a pretty wide view. However, it's completely manual. So in this kit lens, you will be able to hook it onto your camera and you can, just go into an auto mode and click, click, click. However, this one actually has a manual focus, which means once I attach it to my camera, I cannot just, take pictures. I have to focus it to whatever I'm taking a picture of. So that's kind of the next step. It's a little bit more harder, but we'll look into how to use these kinds of lenses. This is not very expensive when it comes to a normal lens that you would generally use for astrophotography. I think I bought it in 2016. It was around $600 at that time. And as you can see, it's not from Canon. It's a Rockinon knockoff brand. And I bought it from Amazon. So, to start off, you can always do that. I was a grad student. I couldn't really afford a Canon wide angle lens, but this really works well. I still use it. Another thing you definitely need in addition to the camera and the lenses is a stable tripod. Whether you're using a cell phone or whether you're using a camera, you definitely need a stable tripod. So I bought this Manfrotto a couple of years ago, but before this I had a very cheap, like $30–40 tripod that I use for stabling my camera. This is useful because you're going to be leaving your shutter open, so you're going to leave the eyes of the camera open for sometimes 20 or 30 seconds, and you want to make sure that, if you're holding it, you're probably going to move, you're going to have some kind of vibrations going in. So in order to avoid that, you definitely need to have a tripod. A good tripod is something that's sturdy, something that is going to take the weight of your camera. It could be a cell phone too. You can use a simple Gorilla Pod. They're small and handy. You can hang them anywhere. Or you could have a big Manfrotto kind of tripod for your camera. And then last but not the least, actually, two things. This is kind of a bonus. This is a remote that I use for some of my Star Trail videos or photos, but you can also use this for Milky Way photography. And what this actually does is you hook this up to your camera. So there is an option to hook it up to your camera. Once you do, you basically, set a timer and you can press the button and kind of walk away from your camera, and then it takes a picture. What this allows you to do is also avoid additional vibrations that you may give to the camera by just like pressing the button. You will, just try and press it really lightly. That gives vibrations as well. So to make sure that you are not doing that, you could use a remote, but it's not necessary. It's not required. A lot of the new digital cameras actually come with a set timer, so you can click on it, and then it will do 1, 3, 5, or 10 seconds, and then it will take a picture. So you could definitely do that if you don't have a remote. Again, I bought this one, I don't remember the price, bought it off Amazon really cheap, and a few tens of dollars, not hundreds of dollars. So, it's from a newer company. And then the most important part, I think, when doing Milky Way photography, especially if you're going to do sequence of these Milky Way photos, is your SD card. So currently I'm using the Ultra SanDisk SD card, and it's pretty fast. It's 32 gigabytes. If you're planning to do sequence of photos throughout the night, you want to make sure you have a lot of space on it, as well as they're pretty fast. So this one that I'm currently using is 40 megabytes per second, and it's pretty neat. I have some other ones that are slower than this one, and what it does end up doing is that once I click on take a picture, it takes a while to process, which means if you're trying to do a sequence, you're going to miss a lot of time in processing. So if you have a very fast SD card, it actually helps you a lot in getting, really neat long pictures, which process really fast. So that's kind of the few things I actually use. So you have your camera, you have your lens, you have your tripod, remote if you have any. If you don't, that's totally okay, but an SD card, definitely you need it. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about what kind of settings you will use, what you need to keep in mind. We talked a little bit about the shutter speed, the aperture, the ISO, and how you're going to be setting it and what it's going to be. So stay tuned for the next episode.